The scream came from the woods behind the house. Thin, cracked, and far too human to belong to the wind. I froze with one mitten half on, breath caught in my throat. Snow fell softly around the porch light, thick and slow, like the world was trying to smother itself. The trees beyond the fence swayed, bare branches scraping together with a dry, clicking sound. Then it came again. Not louder. Closer. I could feel it vibrating in my ribs, that sound, like someone screaming through clenched teeth, desperate not to be heard. Inside the house, the Christmas radio played an old carol. Bells. Choir voices. Warmth that felt suddenly fake. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. No answer. The porch light flickered. For just a moment, I thought I saw something between the trees. Tall, motionless, darker than the shadows around it. But when I leaned forward, squinting into the snowfall, there was nothing. Only the woods. Only silence. I told myself it was an animal. A fox. A coyote. Anything normal. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. "Don't go outside tonight." The screen went dark. Behind me, somewhere inside the house, a floorboard creaked. Slow. Careful. As if someone had just taken their first step into a room they weren't invited into. The house went quiet after the porch light flickered. Not the comfortable quiet of a winter night, but a hollow one. Like something had stepped into the space between sounds and pushed everything else out. Even the radio had stopped. The carol cut off mid-note, leaving a faint electrical hiss before fading into nothing. I didn't turn around right away. I stood there in the living room, coat still on, boots dripping melted snow onto the rug, staring at the dark hallway that led deeper into the house. My heart was beating too fast, too loud. Each thump felt like it was announcing me to whatever had just moved inside. "Mom!" I called. My voice sounded wrong, thin, distant, like it didn't belong to me. She appeared at the end of the hallway slowly, gripping the doorframe as if the house might sway. Her face was pale, eyes wide and glassy, fixed somewhere just over my shoulder. "You heard it too," she said. It wasn't a question. Heard what? I lied. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in her expression that scared me more than the noise itself. Relief. Not comfort. Not happiness. Relief that she wasn't alone anymore. "Come inside," she said. "Lock the door." I did. The deadbolt slid into place with a heavy final click that echoed longer than it should have. We stood there in silence, coats still on, listening. Nothing happened. No footsteps. No voices. No movement. That should have calmed me. It didn't. The house felt aware. Like it was waiting to see what we would do next. Dinner passed without appetite. The table was set like always. Red placemats, chipped plates, a single candle in the center. Dad used to insist on candles every Christmas Eve. Said the light made the house feel warmer. Tonight, the flame flickered violently despite the windows being shut tight. Mom barely touched her food. Her hands shook when she lifted her fork, and she flinched every time the old grandfather clock in the corner ticked. I hadn't noticed it before, but the ticking sounded uneven, like it skipped a beat every few seconds. Tick, tick, tick. I finally set my fork down. "You need to tell me what's happening," I said. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared at the candle, watching the wax drip down the side like something melting under pressure. "It started last Christmas," she said quietly. The air felt heavier as soon as she spoke. "After your father died, the house felt empty. Too empty. Then one night, I heard him walking upstairs. Same rhythm. Same weight on the boards." My chest tightened. "You were grieving," I said. "Your mind." "No," she cut in sharp. Then softer. "I know what grief feels like." The candle flame leaned sideways. "He spoke to me," she continued. "Not like a memory. Not like a dream. He spoke from the hallway. From the stairs. From behind closed doors." My throat went dry. What did he say? She hesitated. Things he shouldn't have known. The clock skipped again. Tick, tick, tick. "Like what?" I asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Things that hadn't happened yet. A sound came from above us. Just one. A floorboard creaking under slow, deliberate pressure. Mom's eyes snapped upward. My skin prickled. "That's impossible," I said, though I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince. She pushed her chair back and stood. "We don't go upstairs after dark," she said. "Not on Christmas." Another creak answered her. Closer. I slept in my childhood room that night. The walls were still covered in old posters. The desk still bore knife marks from when I was younger and bored and careless. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. The air was colder up there. No matter how high I turned the heater, the chill clung to the room like damp breath. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening. At 12:47 a.m., I heard whispering. Not words, just the sound of breath-shaping syllables that never fully formed. It came from the hallway, then from right outside my door. I squeezed my eyes shut. "You're imagining it," I told myself. The doorknob turned. Slowly. Stopped. A voice, soft, familiar, spoke through the wood. "Why did you come back?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. The voice sighed, disappointed. Footsteps moved away, down the hall, toward the stairs. I lay there until morning, shaking, fully aware of one terrifying truth. Whatever was in this house knew who I was. And it knew I didn't belong here anymore. Downstairs, the clock kept ticking, waiting for Christmas to arrive. Morning didn't bring relief. It brought confirmation. I woke to the smell of burnt coffee and something else beneath it. Old, damp, like a basement that hadn't been opened in years. The house felt heavier in daylight, as if the sun had only revealed how little space there truly was inside these walls. Mom was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded, not drinking the coffee in front of her. "You didn't sleep," she said. Neither had she. I didn't tell her about the voice at my door. I didn't need to. The way her eyes kept drifting toward the hallway told me she already knew. Outside, the town moved slowly. Cars passed without stopping. Neighbors waved too late or not at all. Christmas decorations hung limp and faded, as if they'd been up too long. At the grocery store, conversations died when I walked past. An old woman in line leaned toward me, breath shaking. "You should have stayed gone," she whispered. Before I could respond, she turned away like she hadn't spoken at all. The first object moved that afternoon. It was small, easy to dismiss. Dad's old watch. I'd placed it on the mantel that morning, the leather strap cracked and stiff. It had been years since it worked. A keepsake. Nothing more. When I came back into the living room, it was gone. I searched the shelves, the couch, the floor. Then I heard the ticking. Soft, steady, from the hallway closet. I stood there for a long time before opening the door. The watch lay on the floor inside, face up, ticking. I didn't touch it. That night, the whispers returned. They came in layers, some close, some distant. Some sounded like breath, others like words spoken underwater. I caught fragments that made no sense. "Almost time. Door stays open," he promised. I found Mom in the living room, sitting in the dark, clutching Dad's old jacket. "He made a deal," she said suddenly. I stopped. "What?" "Your father," she continued. "He made a deal with something." The words felt rehearsed, forced out by repetition. "For what?" I asked. "So we could stay," she said. "So Ridgeway wouldn't take us like it took the others." My pulse thudded in my ears. What others? She finally looked at me. The families that disappeared. The ones no one talks about anymore. I thought of the crossed-out population sign. "Dad didn't tell me this," I said. "He didn't tell anyone," she replied. That was part of it. A thump echoed upstairs. Single. Heavy. Mom flinched. "It knows you're here now," she whispered. The journal explained the rest. Dad had kept it hidden in the crawlspace beneath the stairs, wrapped in plastic like something toxic. Each entry grew more frantic as Christmas approached each year. "They want proof." They want a voice to answer. They don't accept silence. Then the last pages. If I let it in, it leaves the house alone. If I refuse, it takes someone. I understood then. Christmas wasn't a holiday. It was a deadline. The house grew worse as the day dragged on. Doors opened on their own. Photos shifted, faces blurring in old frames. Reflections lagged a second behind movements. At sunset, the power flickered. Mom grabbed my arm. "We have to stay together," she said. That's how he did it. That's how it stayed contained. A knock sounded from upstairs. From Dad's old bedroom. 3 slow taps. Mom shook her head violently. "No," she whispered. "Not yet." The taps turned into scratching. Something dragged itself across the floor above us. And from the ceiling, dust rained down, fine and gray like ash. I confronted her then. "You knew," I said. "You knew what would happen if I came back." Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't think it would choose you," she said. I thought it would take me." The scratching stopped. The house held its breath. Then a voice spoke from the stairs. My father's voice. Calm. Familiar. "It doesn't work that way," it said. My legs went weak. Mom collapsed to her knees. The voice continued. "One stays. One goes." The clock struck midnight. Christmas Eve had begun. And somewhere inside the walls, something smiled. The house no longer felt like home. It was alive. Watching. Breathing. Waiting. Every creak of the floorboards, every draft brushing across my neck, was deliberate, an attention I couldn't escape. The shadows moved with intention, pooling and stretching along walls that should have remained straight. Familiar corners warped. Hallways stretched impossibly long. The air smelled of cold iron and damp pine, mixed with something that made my stomach twist. Mom and I clung to each other in the living room. The candle on the table flickered violently, elongating our shadows across the walls like dark, twitching specters. Every second felt like it stretched into minutes. Each tick of the grandfather clock a drumbeat counting down to some inevitable act. From upstairs came the first sound, a floorboard creaking deliberately. Slow. Heavy. Not like a person walking, but something larger, something older, weighing itself carefully against the house. Then a whisper. "I've waited long enough." Mom covered her ears, rocking slightly. "It doesn't know you yet," she muttered. "It's testing, seeing who comes first." I gritted my teeth. Testing what? Before she could answer, a photo frame shattered in the hallway. Glass skittered across the floor. The image inside, the smiling faces of our family, distorted. Dad's mouth appeared open in a silent scream. The eyes flickered, following me. The whispers multiplied, coming from all directions now. The walls, the ceiling, the space behind the sofa. They overlapped, forming unintelligible words that scratched at the edges of sanity. "Your turn. Let them in. One stays, one goes." And then the voice I feared most spoke, clear and sharp from the darkness near the staircase. "Let me in." It was Dad's voice. Exact. Familiar. Betraying no malice in tone, only expectation. My legs went numb. My chest tightened. I knew this was no longer about Christmas, or tradition, or even grief. This was the entity behind Dad's voice, using him as a mask. Mom grabbed my hand. Her nails dug into my skin. "Run," she whispered. "Run and don't look back." But there was nowhere to go. The doors wouldn't open. The windows were opaque with frost that no heat could melt. Even the walls seemed to lean inward, watching, pushing, directing us toward some central, inescapable point. The staircase. I forced myself toward it, heart hammering in my throat. Every step made the wood groan beneath me, each groan a scream. Shadows slid over the walls, reaching, curling, breathing. From above, a low, resonant hum filled the air, like a choir of impossibly high voices singing just out of tune. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched impossibly long. Doors that had never been there before loomed on either side. The carpet rippled underfoot like water. The whispers became a cacophony. Urgent. pleading, mocking. One door at the end of the hall opened on its own. Blackness spilled into the hall like ink. From it, a figure emerged, or rather, a shape that shouldn't have been able to hold form. It was taller than any man, wrapped in shifting shadows. Where its face should have been, there was only a void that absorbed light. And it spoke, Dad's voice, now layered with dozens of others, some young, some old, all calling, all screaming. One stays. One goes. I froze. Mom cried out. Don't listen to it. The figure advanced. Time seemed to slow. Every step it took distorted the floor, bending space beneath it. The air vibrated with its movement, making my teeth ache, my chest constrict. My own shadow twisted against the wall, no longer aligned with my body. I tried to move, to scream, but my limbs felt like lead. The whispers turned to commands. Let go, follow, stay, leave. And then the entity reached out, not with hands, but with something like weight itself, pressing against my chest. I fell forward, hitting the carpet. The room spun, walls melting into ceiling, ceiling into floor. I saw faces. Dad's, mine, others. Morphing, screaming, pleading. Stop! I shouted, voice raw. The sound echoed through the house, bouncing off surfaces that shouldn't exist. It hesitated. For a fraction of a second, I saw Dad's face within the shadows. Not angry. Not malevolent. Sad. Terribly, impossibly sad. The entity's voice, layered and fractured, whispered again. I can't stop it. The world shifted. The living room became a void. The fireplace burned cold, its flames black and viscous. Candles stretched to impossible lengths. Dripping wax that hissed when it hit the floor. Mom clutched my arm, sobbing silently. The entity advanced again. I remembered the journal. Dad's words. If I fail, they'll take someone else. I had a choice. Stay and face the entity alone or run, and risk leaving Mom behind. But something inside me snapped. Fear turned to resolve. I grabbed Mom. We're leaving. Now. The air resisted. Shadows surged, trying to pull us back. Whispers became screams. The void stretched, folding the hallway like paper. The entity roared, not with sound, but with force, a gravitational pressure that tried to crush everything we were. We ran. Doors appeared as we approached, leading nowhere or looping back on themselves. Windows flashed glimpses of the woods outside. Tall, endless, snow-covered. Each step we took felt like running in place. The whispers grew desperate. Don't leave. Don't leave. Don't leave. Finally, a door swung open. Light. The snow outside. The real world. We stumbled through, collapsing into the cold. My lungs burned. My fingers were blue. Mom held me tight. Behind us, the house shivered. The entity screamed in a soundless, weightless way. The windows glowed faintly red. Then, as if realizing we had escaped its grasp, it withdrew. Slowly, deliberately. The whispers didn't stop entirely. They lingered in the wind, faint, distant, but persistent. Dad's voice, faint and broken, whispered one last time. You can't outrun it. Christmas always comes. The snow outside fell silently. It should have felt peaceful. Christmas Eve. Finally quiet. But the cold that clung to my coat and seeped through my boots was nothing compared to the emptiness inside me. Ridgeway lay still under its blanket of white, but the town felt like a stage after the audience had vanished. Every house, every street lamp, every shadow seemed to watch, waiting, knowing what had just passed. Mom and I didn't speak. We trudged through the snow toward the road, toward anything that might feel like safety. The headlights of a passing car illuminated the horizon, but it didn't matter. Our lives had shifted. The world itself seemed altered, as though the house, and whatever it had unleashed, had changed the very fabric of reality. When we reached the highway, I turned back once. The house was still there. Silent, dark, innocent almost. Yet I knew it would never be the same. Its walls held echoes of what we had endured, shadows that would not relent. And somewhere deep within, a presence lingered. Patient, waiting for next Christmas, for the next family, for the next soul. At home, the aftermath felt heavier than the journey. I tried to sleep that night, but the bed felt wrong. The shadows in my room seemed longer, denser, crawling just at the periphery of vision. Every creak of the house, even in the quiet of another town hundreds of miles away, reminded me of the steps that had followed us, or the voices that had whispered our names. Mom stared at the ceiling for hours, silent and hollow. I watched her, wondering if grief alone could explain the emptiness in her eyes. Something had followed us. Something had claimed a piece of our lives. I opened the journal again. The last pages were blank now, as if the entity had erased everything that came after. Or perhaps it hadn't. Perhaps the story was ongoing, unreadable by human eyes. Days passed. Christmas came and went. Presents were unwrapped. Lights twinkled. Families laughed. For us, nothing changed. The world moved on, but we didn't. Every holiday since, I feel the weight of that night pressing against my chest. I hear footsteps in empty rooms. Doors close softly behind me when no one is there. Shadows shift just a little too fast. And always, always, a faint whisper trails in my mind. Next year. I never returned to Ridgeway. I don't need to. The house isn't bound by distance. Its presence lingers in memory, in fear, in the knowledge that some things can't be outrun, and some nightmares refuse to stay in the past. I talk about that Christmas now only in fragments. To strangers who will never understand. To friends who nod politely, laugh, and walk away. But I know the truth. And every December, when the air grows colder and the first snow falls, I feel it watching again. Not angry. Not chaotic. Patient. Waiting. Christmas is never innocent. It is a promise. A deadline. A test. And those who survive are never the same. Mom sits quietly beside me now, her hands still trembling in mine. Neither of us speaks of what we lost, or what followed us. Silence has become our shield. But the fear is permanent. Because some things, once awakened, cannot be silenced. And the final truth remains, echoing in the hollow corners of the mind, whispering in the space between heartbeats. The nightmare is never over. It only waits.